Lord. All right. We'll start off singing with hymn number 363 this evening, Jesus Saves, hymn 363. Oh, amen. And I wasn't looking at my schedule. We'll celebrate the offering if I can get our ushers to come forward here. All right, you may be seated. You go ahead. You can keep your seat for this next hymn, but if you'll turn over to hymn 362, we're going to sing Rescue the Perishing, hymn 362. pastor and his family coming back from their mission trip, we're going to let them take up the time to tell us all about that. So with that, we'll just go ahead and keep on singing. So if you'll turn in your hymnals to now hymn 354. And actually, why don't we all stand for this hymn? And after that second verse of Throw Out the Lifeline, we'll take a moment to greet each other with a handshake. Hymn 354, Throw Out the Lifeline. Handshake. Seats. We're going to pick it up on the fourth verse of 354.
All right, good to be here tonight. And again, as I said this morning, it's good to be back at our church. I know there's things going on, and I'll mention that when we start looking at some of the pictures over there in Alaska that could have been neat to be a part of this week. But even that Throw Out the Lifeline song we just sang, I remember we were on the ferry and they have these lifeline, lifesaver discs that they throw out. And I was thinking about that as we're on our way back. I was like, that's exactly what we've been trying to do while we're here, is send people the rescue, so to speak, of the gospel message. And we had a chance to get that to a number of folks, and we're thankful to do that. We're going to show you a little bit of what it's like. I have the microphone near my family, so if you don't want to get caught on mic, you don't want to be right next to that because it'll pick them up. Because I might have them pitch in, or they might want to raise their hand or say something. Afterward, I'll give them a chance to share any testimony that they'd like to, but maybe they'll pipe in as I go back and do pictures. We'll also take some questions at the end, but I think you'll be excited for some of the things that you're going to see. We had a great blessing. We appreciate everyone praying. And I will say this because I don't want to forget at the end. Hopefully I'll remind at the end. This was like a maiden voyage, so to speak, or a first try at a missions trip to get an idea. We have some ideas we're praying about for next year. My goal is to be able to announce it at missions conference where we're looking at and when, to give other people opportunity to maybe save up and get their own plane ticket and then go with us and help out. So there's a few places I'm praying about that could be a neat opportunity. But my goal, again, by missions conference, to let everybody know when and where so that others might be able to join us and get involved in this. So I'm going to go back to the back and try to go through these pictures. Real quick, I can get back there. Am I on the right? Oh, they turned me on. Okay. Everybody hear me fine out there? Okay, so yeah, Brother Mike's trying to fix it. All right, it's probably my family's mic. All right, everybody hear me fine? Okay, good. So first here, of course, is Mrs. Ross, our missionary, and of course they were members here, and they left on to deputation from our church, and they had been in Nome. I can get to more of this later, but the Lord has moved them to Ketchikan. This is the parsonage, one of the parsonages there at the church that they are staying in while they're getting their own house ready. Their pastor, Pastor Judson, likes to host different preachers for getaways and things like that, so he's got a pretty nice on-property place for them to stay, but that's where this picture is taking place. There's the dining room. They're getting some meal ready for us on the first day. This here is Gateway Baptist Church. On our right here, this is where the auditorium is, the preaching area. Over here, they used to have a Christian school, but it's more like their fellowship hall now and a bunch of the Sunday school classes and their kitchen and all. Brother Justin has already been voted to become the pastor next January. His goal, and this was kind of the previous pastor, but it never happened. His goal is to connect these buildings. And when we first got there, it was blue sky. It turns out it rains almost every day, all the time. We just happened to be there when it wasn't. So the VBS week, which will be in a couple days, raining every day. So you're going back and forth, and you can imagine how much mud and things it creates with that. Here they actually did the same stompers and chompers that we just did. So we were able to bring some decorations for them and help a little bit as my wife and a bunch of us got involved in helping decorate, preparing for that. There is their youngest Charity that my daughter Mia is holding, and then super good friend Melody. Mia and Melody had a good time. They created their own handshakes and things. The girls were really blessed to have our girls there, and both parents got choked up a couple times. In fact, when I left, Brother Justin said he really appreciated the fellowship, the advice, serving and being a blessing, but he said he thinks his favorite thing about us coming was the encouragement his daughters were getting from our girls being there. That just really touched his heart and meant a lot to him. They have some teens and all there, but they don't have any small children. And so it was a huge blessing for their girls to get to be around some Christian girls. This is out there by the coast. I guess I'm getting a few repeat pictures here, and I don't know why. This is still at their place. here was one of the days we were getting ready to, the boys and Brother Ross and I got to go through the neighborhoods and canvas for VBS. We had door hangers, we had specific invites about the VBS, and then it looks like Isaiah, we each had some of those. Well, Isaiah and Mark are also holding gospel tracts. They had a really nice gospel tract. The people were pretty receptive. Several people said that the young people of Ketchikan need Christ. I'm sure they do as well. It's a town of about 8,500. Mark, you want to say something?
Yeah, it was just a big blessing while we were doing this. Gospel tract, people that actually give the gospel to them. Like often we go gospel tract, door knocking here, people kind of aren't receptive to the gospel, but it was a big blessing passing out tracts. People let you really explain the gospel to them. It was pretty cool while we were doing this.
Amen. Yeah, so it was neat to go around the town. The town's about 8,500. It's on an island. It's the only city on the island. The boys said they heard in youth group that there's about 11,000 on the island, right?
10 to 11,000.
10 to 11, but the town has 8,500. You'll see in a little bit, it's become a tourist town. It was a town that had almost died until all the cruise boats started coming through there. So some of you involved in VBS, you can remember these posters. Here is one of the classrooms. This was the one Mrs. Ross and then my wife helped in there. I think they're getting some decorations ready here. This is upstairs in their classroom area. Lots of decorating took place around there. I got to do games and some teaching with the young people as well as preaching on Sunday. These giant boats, they have people coming from all over the world. And the folks, as they get off these boats, they're just ready to receive whatever. So one of the retired preachers that comes up there and visits, he said, you can just stand there and you can give away gospel tracts and people just take things because they're free. And then they're going to the touristy area. A lot of them don't speak English. Some of them do, but it's neat. You can just give tracts to folks. Here's the fellowship hall area. We had adult Sunday school in here. I think they also have youth group in here. This is where, at this time, everybody's getting ready for decorating VBS. This is where we had our main assembly for VBS, was in this room. Say a couple more things about that in a moment. This, next to Mrs. Ross there, is the current pastor's wife. They've been trying to retire for some time. They brought in a couple people that ended up not being a good fit, or there was some doctrinal issues and all. So they were excited that the Rosses are coming down, and they had a full support of them, and then the entirety of the church, of the Rosses taking the church. This couple lives across the way from the church. They'll probably stay for a while. I'm not sure how long, but for some time. A lot of their family is really involved in church, and they're all very supportive of the Rosses coming. She's a native. Pastor Judson, we'll see in a little bit here, her husband, he got saved later on as an adult, but he's actually from Alaska. He's pastored a couple of churches there within the state. We had another youth group from Ohio happen to be coming up this week as well to help, not just with VBS, but they had not only a youth group, some workers had come to work on a bunch of things for the church and for Pastor Judson. So this youth group got involved in quite a few things in set up and tear down, and the boys got to know them pretty well. They were a blessing. I don't know much about this picture, but it looks like it's at the beach. I did one morning, had really rough for my Bible time. I got to sit out on the beach. That was pretty awesome. And just have some coffee and some time in the Word. And I thought I would do that every day, but it turns out, no, it rains every day. So that was a good start. And the girls having a good time collecting some things. Now we are on, is this the Blueberry Day, Alicia? Can you tell? Yes. Okay. This is August 5th. On this Saturday, they have Blueberry Festival, and people come from all over the island and the communities to come and have kind of a, what a festival's like, different shops and booths. What Pastor Judson does is he gets a whole bunch of helium balloons and he constantly is blowing them up. And then we went out with VBS invites every time we saw kids and say, here's a free balloon. And so one person hands balloons and the other person gets to talk to the parents and invite them to Vacation Bible School. I know of one guy I saw at VBS that I had talked to. I don't know how many ended up coming. Here's where all the balloons are being blown up. And so we take them as groups and then go out and find kids everywhere and give them balloons with invites. I was going to say, so Brother Justin said, not only did this, they also did July 4th, plus we did the canvassing, plus the youth group did some canvassing. We did way more canvassing than had ever been done before. So we were hoping for a really huge first Monday, but I'll tell you how that went in a little bit. Oh, see, these are the flyers we got to hand out for VBS. And there's some kind of treat at, how festivals are. There's Pastor Judson on the one sitting on the truck there, and his wife is making the strings. I got told not to hand any more balloons out because they were bad for the environment. So I decided to help tie balloons and because we wanted to get that going. We were getting them handed out faster than they could be tied anyway. So that's festival stuff, right? Oh, what's going on here?
Pastor.
Oh, you want to say something, Alicia? Go ahead.
Yeah, I thought I would just add, it was really neat. We were the only ones doing balloons, and the kids in the community loved it. We had people approaching us, hey, can we have one of those balloons? Can we pay you for them? We're like, no, they're free. And they're, we want to invite people to our church. And it was a huge hit. People really were excited and very receptive. Like, oh, that sounds really interesting. We'd like to try that out. I was just excited to see, you get ideas sometimes and they totally flop. This one worked really well. And then it was beautiful. The festival, there's hundreds of people everywhere, and you'd see all these little balloons all over the place. And you're like, wait, those are all people that we've invited to VBS. Yeah. It was really cool to see. I enjoyed that. And one of those pictures was the girls' gymnastic teacher, Tara. She's a talker, and she would stop and talk to all these people at these booths. And I was like, what a blessing. She'd just take the time to connect with people and invite them. And it was just neat, the community feeling of just taking time to get to know people in the community. It was good.
Yeah, very good. So this, I think, was the last not pouring down rain or rainy day. And our goal was to not be ministered to, though this church really loves to minister to people. But to minister to them, I was telling our family that's going to be our theme, is we came not to be ministered unto, but to minister. They love spoiling ministry people. That's what this church likes doing. It's on their pastor's heart. But we were really trying to follow the Lord and figure out ways to be a blessing. What we saw, and Brother Dale will appreciate this, a lot of their landscaping is really behind. And I think it's because there's a lot going on, plus it just rains all the time. So we had an opening, and the boys and I were able to get a lot of landscaping done. You want to say something about this, Mark?
Oh, just about the weather. We had 4 or 5 days without raining. It's unheard of to have 4 days without rain. It rains 11 months out of the year. So to have 4 days where it doesn't rain is people were shocked everywhere. So it was interesting. We came right during that.
Yeah. So that ended up being good we were hoping we'd get to use some of the field for VBS games, but it rained. We did get to use it for a fellowship on Sunday night. Mark got to do lots of weed eating on the hill and all. And then, let's see here. This is the Ross's house. Now, the only place that looks really nice is on the outside. So it's a really cool setup. A single guy had lived there and died suddenly of a heart attack. And it's very interesting. He just kind of kept adding on for whatever. I don't know if he had his mom visit. We don't know all the stories, but it had sat empty for a couple years. And buying anything on this island is insanely expensive. You can't get property if you're not native. So you have to find something open, and they rarely have things open. But this had been sitting there for a while. I think it's because when people saw the inside, they're like, there's no way I could ever get that done. Everything needs fixed pretty much. And Brother Justin's done a lot. And there was lots of rat pellets. So there's just a lot of things going on. Mark, you have something else on this?
This is a big blessing. Just this house, they said everything is around 500, 450,000 for like a small house. They got this for 170,000. It's like really nice. So that was just a massive answer to prayer for them. They were finding such a crazy price on a house like this. So that was super cool to see that they got such an awesome price.
Yeah, it keeps dropping because nobody had wanted it. Here's a lot of the lumber. We got to all these boards. We got to help them put their ceiling on. Brother Ross says by the time you ship everything, doing the wood ceiling, it looks a lot like ours here in the church, but it's not the thick kind, it's the thin kind. About the same price by the time you ship it as doing drywall. And he much prefers doing wood over drywall. So you'll see that in a little bit. Oh, you want to say something about this? Okay.
So I know this isn't a beautiful picture, but this is a huge part of Ketchikan. These big water tanks, they collect their rainwater. We live on an aquifer here, and so we just tap into city water and it's pumped to us. They don't have an aquifer, they're an islet. So they collect rainwater, and if you run out, you run out. So it actually happened to us. The place we were staying ran out of water, and we're like, so what does that mean? They're like, well, pray it rains. We're like, oh. So this is a picture of the water tank that they have right now, and it's enough for like a single man.
1,500 gallons. Families use about 6,000 to 7,000.
A family with 5 daughters, they're going to need more water. So something on our heart is to maybe help them get another large water tank, because that's what they have to live off of, is just collecting it.
He needs to get a 5,000 gallon, and that's about $5,000. So when they there's times in the winter where there's no water, and then you have to live off of what was there. So it's a big concern for Tara. Brother Justin's like, I can go jump in the sea and get cleaned up, but he knows they're going to need water. Okay, so now we get to see the inside a little bit. The ceiling, there's some of the beginning when we got there. You see on the far side of the ceiling work that needed done. I don't even know where to start on all of this. We don't need to describe how the house works, but you just kind of see there's a lot of work to be done. So the boys and I had the chance to pitch in with quite a bit. He's got a lot left to do, but we did get to help a bunch. And that youth group that came, they helped with getting a dumpster full. I'll show you later some of the work that was done, because it was kind of during the week of VBS.
That was their first time having crab. Someone just dropped it off on their doorstep and said, hey, do you want some Dungeness crab? And they're like, well, I don't know how to eat it. They're from Oklahoma. And I said, well, I'll show you how to do it. So that was kind of a fun experience for them.
And the highway goes along the sea, so that's pretty awesome when it's not raining. And then here's the church. They have these creatures that like to get into the trash fairly often. And Sunday morning, they'd been happening, but Sunday morning, this guy got into the trash a bunch. And Brother Justin had to kind of go out there and chase off the bear so that people could feel safe coming to church.
That's right outside their house. Oh.
Here's inside the church building on Sunday morning. Of course, Pastor Justin on the right, Pastor John in the middle, and then this guy on the left. Mark played for us for both of our specials we got to sing. This is out front from the church on Sunday morning. Here's some of the folks there. This is Teen Sunday School. Of course, our boys are there. They also have this youth group from Ohio. You want to say something about this, Mark?
Just the Sunday school, Brother Ross, he was doing this, and I thought it was really cool to see. He's more closed off when you're around him normally, kind of quieter. Most of you remember him. When he teaches, it's really cool to see. He totally livens up. Like, he gets funny, super energetic, connects with everyone. So it's really cool to watch how he's just able to use the Lord in that way, even though he's not comfortable with that. He's able to just really connect with everyone and be energetic in that way, which is cool.
This is one of the children's classes. This is adult class. He had his friend, Brother Marty, there teaching a series, and then in the Sunday school. And he's normally a Christian counselor. He had worked at a Bible college. He's mostly retired, and they're good friends. He's the one that helped us get a lot of the fish and had it all sealed. He's the one that was determined that we were going to go fishing. So if you enjoyed the fish, you can thank him. That was a neat time. And this man's got a lot of wisdom. He's not so much of a preacher, but he's definitely a good Bible teacher. And he was teaching on anger. There was some good stuff there. The Rosses updated their whole church nursery. Looks really great. The whole church family was excited about all the work that they've done for that. Here's our family got to sing on Sunday morning. I remember what Brother Ross is doing here. Maybe he's introducing me. Isaiah and I got to sing in the evening. Charity. Okay, after Sunday night, it started raining too bad yet, I don't think. And so Brother Judson didn't want to miss an opportunity with some good weather. He invited us to stick around, and then they did hot dogs over the fire. There's no such thing as not burn season around there. And that was a nice time to get to know some of the folks and get ready, kind of pray about and get excited about VBS. This is where you can go there and you're guaranteed to see bear.
That's the river.
Pretty much. And they took us there after church, after that food fellowship, and we saw a mommy and 3 cubs and some other bears. So that was pretty nice of them. It wasn't too far from the church. There's some of them there, you see. So that was nice of them to do that for us. Kind of a free thing we could do. Oh, and the boys and I have kind of a joke. Every time we do something, Brother Ross, we have to get lost, whether it's my fault going or Brother Ross's, but we had multiple experiences of that, and including we were trying to get a better angle, and we just kept getting blocked off in that as well. This is on the right is the little place where we stayed. It's upstairs. There's Mark unsuccessfully trying to catch fish in the wrong place. One of the mornings. And this is getting cookies ready for VBS. Here's some of the kids. There's a good mix of both natives and white folks there that come to VBS in church. Yeah.
So this picture is special. That little girl, Judy, and her sister, Felicia. Judy was 4, and she was in my class, or Miss Tara's class with me helping out. And she was just adorable. Every so often, she'd lean over to me and say, "This is a nice place. I like this song." Like, she was just adorable, and it was just precious to see her being drawn to the Lord's love that was there. And then her sister, Felicia, she was a little more rascally.
Very much a rascal,
and,
yeah.
But so thankful that she was coming and getting to hear God's truth.
Okay, so we had all these workers. We're all excited, did more outreach than ever. And our first night, we only had, I think, 11 non-teens come to VBS. So everybody's trying to stay encouraged. Well, remember how I asked everyone to be praying for the Lord to lead? I think it was like an hour and a half or hour before we started, I just was praying like how our church could be a blessing. And I went up and asked Brother Justin if they had anything like a super prize for whoever brings the most visitors. And they go, well, we've never really done that before. We just let whoever gets the most points goes to the prize table first at the end of the week. And so I said, well, maybe I can run to Walmart and get some kind of drone. And Brother Justin asked Pastor Judson if that'd be okay or be offensive, and he thought it was fine. So I ran and I had the church get him just a $50 drone. And Mark would fly it in at the end of the day and say, whoever brings the most visitors will get this drone. Oh, go ahead, Mark.
I just want to say I was an expert pilot. I definitely did not run into Pastor Judson's head.
He was supposedly an expert pilot, but he actually ran into Pastor Judson's head one of the times. So, but this really took off, and tons of kids wanted it. We doubled the second night and then doubled the third night. And all of a sudden, all these kids were bringing friends, and we had many, many lost kids there to reach the gospel with. And so I just thought that was a neat answer to prayer. Some of you were praying for the Lord's leading, and that was one where I know the Lord led, and everybody there was so glad that we did that our church did that for them, bringing this super prize, because it went from we have 3 times as many workers as kids to now it starts to really begin to fill up with kids. Brother Ross did an awesome job. Again, if you know him, he seems kind of introverted, never says much. When he got going on his character, he was hilarious. And he really presented the gospel well with this Dr. Rocco and this blow-up Rexy that he pretended to ride. He has those fake legs, and they looked kind of real, so then he's running around and hunting dinosaurs throughout the week. It was pretty neat. He and Pastor Judson worked together to have a little fun back and forth and give the gospel. The gospel was given in a bunch of different ways throughout the week, during the verses and singing time, during the lesson time, during Dr. Rocco, during the puppet show, and then sometimes at the end of the day, the Lord would lead Pastor Judson to give the gospel clearly. This class had a number of boys and girls that claimed to accept Christ this week. That was the class that Anna and Harmony, you can see her in. This class kept growing throughout the week, and so that was an exciting. This class also, Mrs. Judson had 2 the first day, and this class really began to grow throughout the week. The same with Mrs. Ross's class. Here's the puppets. They did a good job. Here now you can see we got a lot of the ceiling has been coming along. And then Mark and I took, while Isaiah and Mr. Ross did a lot of the ceiling, Mark and I were moving all the trash out to a trash pile for quite a while. And then we went in and started helping cut and things more. And Mark did a bunch of little projects and got to help. See these giant cruise ships. There's so many of them each day. Go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I was just going to say, there's a couple pictures here. It seems kind of boring. My goal was I tried to take a couple pictures of the town as we were entering town, just to kind of give you a feel for what the environment looks like there. So that's a couple of these pictures without people.
And the boys said one of their favorite things of the week. I mean, I think they enjoyed canvassing and all, but they loved getting to help Brother Ross work on his place and try to be a blessing to the missionary and encourage them. It's just really neat to be able to kind of let people that can feel a little isolated or out there in different places know that you're backing them and you care about them and their family and what they're doing. This Masonic temple is like one of the first things you see coming off the boat, but praise the Lord, it is closed and condemned. But you can still see the remains of some of the creepy satanic emblems on the top there. A lot of this part of the town gets boarded up and shut down after tourist season is over. Tons of salmon run through here. We took the Rosses to lunch one day, and they showed us some of the way people walk around. Okay.
Oh, this is the girl that Harmony invited from the thrift store. She showed up, so she was so excited.
And then they did pledges each day. Pastor Judson led in that. We did some really silly songs, and they would grab different workers to do them. They had Alicia and I do the T-Rex song, do, the dinosaur. It was kind of silly. So you can see some of the classes starting to get bigger. Remember, this is the class that had 2 on the first day. This is game time. Okay, I did the games each day, except this day must be Wednesday or Tuesday, because Brother Marty, who was doing the teens, had me go out and talk about considering God's call. And so I gave the gospel to them, but also shared Isaiah 6 and how the Lord had called me into ministry. And I enjoyed getting to preach to the teens. There was at least a couple of them when I was out there that were interested in the gospel. And so that was a blessing. And then several several raised their hand, recognizing that God's way is the best way, and to consider God's guidance for their life. So I got to help cut, and boy, I made a lot of mistakes. The boys are like, what are all these little corners on the ground? I'm like, well, that's all the times your dad cut it backwards. Because when you do it up on the ceiling, there's double 50-50s, and there's only one way to get it right, so you got to get a 50-50 right twice. And of course, a lot of times I thought I had it right, and I didn't. But thankfully, it didn't ruin any wood, because though on the ends, the wall gets covered up. So I didn't ruin any of his boards, I don't think. Just wasted time. And the girls went up and did some painting together. We didn't fall in the hole of death, so that was an answer to prayer. Even with the ladder over it, right? Cute little girls getting a bunch of painting done. That's the machine that I kept making mistakes on. Now you'll notice here it's going from an angle to level. Check this out. This could never happen, but Brother Justin and I were there after everybody else had left. It actually matched up where it went from the angle down to the flat part, and it fit right in, and the entire corner was plumb and straight. So I felt like God's grace was upon us at that point. We didn't have to do any table sign to get that one right. So we were super excited that worked out. Their VBS includes teens. On their high day, I think there was over 20 teens. You remember how many there were, Zaya? How many teens on the high day?
It was around 20.
Yeah. Many of them got to hear the gospel. Here's Dr. Rocco again with Pastor Judson. You can see Mrs. Ross' class has grown. There's the drone right there. Mark actually landed it on his hand. One girl brought, I think it was like 14 visitors.
Oh,
This was playing after the end of the day with some of the workers. We played lightning. Go ahead, Mark.
This was just one activity we did with Ohio, much people from Ohio. It was really fun to make. We made a lot of really good friends at the Reef from Ohio. Me and Isaiah did on our teen boys. That was pretty special. Just being around them the whole week, getting to know them with missions works. That was pretty fun to do that.
I don't know what the foot picture is, but girls had a lot of fellowship time, which was a blessing for them. Different families took turns feeding all the workers each day. That was kind of a neat thing that they did every day at 5. We did an I May Never song, the dinosaur one. I think Brother Greg taught that one this year at our VBS. Here's Dr. Rocco, grew his beard out for a disguise. Classes. One of the games we did was musical chairs. This, I'm guessing, I didn't know about this picture, but their oldest child, Harmony, accepted Christ one night after VBS. So they were super excited, their first child to come to know the Lord. She had been talking with Mia, but then of course about Mia's salvation, but then also they'd had lessons at VBS each night about it. And when Mia said, well, I just went and talked to my dad, that's what Harmony did. She went and talked to her dad, and they went through everything. And 9-year-old girl came to know Christ. And so that was super exciting for them. That's the one right behind Mia on the bear there. Here's the prize table. So we must be at the end of VBS. This is Pastor Judson and his wife, and my wife and I. And then Tara wanted to get in it, so she had to take a selfie. There's Ketchikan right before we left, saying goodbye. They were crying and all as we left. What's this? Is this a video?
Oh.
Ready for doing visitation. We're going to hand out balloons and Bible tracts and invitations. This is so great.
How are you? I'm good.
Oh, this is exciting.
Took the bus.
I love it.
Melody.
I don't know what this one is either.
I'm like, but you have to clean, then you make another mess, and then you have to clean, and I'm like, I'm so done vacuuming. But yeah, it's part of it.
So this is their little fixer-upper, as you can see. But thankfully, it's got really good siding and roofing.
Oh, you scare me to death.
Downstairs.
Yeah, it scares me to death. This is where Trinity stuck on her nail.
Yeah.
Oh
It had
no.
2 inch. I'm blocking this one off the way. It's just one.
Yeah.
That's what it's for.
Bathroom.
Yeah. And kind of a guest bathroom too, if need be.
So when this will all be kitchen, that'll be like you come up the stairs and we'll have like a sitting area for people, and the first thing they see is the wood stove. Or
It's
the-
awesome.
She had him turn the house
This is
upside
gonna
down
be
pretty much.
amazing.
With
I'm so excited.
layout of the house. Felt kind of bad, Brother Ross. Mrs. Ross pretty much changed the whole layout.
These are all videos.
This is Brother Ross before he chased off the bear. I went outside, there's all these berries, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to stand next to all these. So that's it for the videos. Oh, I guess.
No,
That shouldn't have been.
I had VBS ones.
I think there's a few more.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, yeah.
Now we can look like movers. Okay, that's enough of that. Here's Dr. Rocco.
On the count of 3, I want everybody to say hello, Dr. Rocco. 1, 2, 3.
There are three codes on this side. Please look to the rear nose here.
Or the stars.
You're gonna be noticed. There it is.
Get away!
This is freeze tag with balls.
Oh
Freeze and unfreeze tag.
Here we go. This is
Highly
before.
productive little girls right here.
You can see they're starting with blue. Do it nice and thick, Harmony. Get more paint.
Is this the
When
boys?
you see one, what do my mates do?
Get the idea.
Day 2, God made clouds and sky so blue. Day 2, God made clouds and sky so blue. Good job. Day.
And we can end with that one, I guess. Oh, I'll come back out here. I don't know how to turn the picture off, but at least it's a cute one. Mia said that was her favorite picture of the whole trip. So, but it was neat to get a chance, different ways to enjoy serving the Lord with them, try to encourage them, spend a lot of time. One of the things is this coming week, they're going to Metlakatla. It's in one of the islands that has 1,500. It's all native village. They're taking this same VBS, and now they're going to do it over there. I thought that would have been neat to go to, but there's another one pastor and a staff member that were getting there this week, and so we were saving all the decorations because they were going to go set up their little church with that. and have the same VBS. Brother Justin will be there starting tomorrow for the whole week. And then you may remember what the Lord has called Brother Justin to is, for one, to minister at a local church, but then also to go around and reach all these places where they don't have a gospel witness or don't have a pastor. And so he was showing me some of the areas that you can only get to by boat or little plane. The problem with the plane, because the type of a plane, you can take those seaplanes and you could land anywhere, but they can't fly a lot because the fog is so dense there. It's super unsafe or unable. So eventually he thinks a boat will probably be the best way. For now, you can rent different ones, and that's what he's been doing with Metlakatla. They needed a church where the family could go, where he could minister, but then be able to reach out to a bunch of remote areas. I'm going into all the details in Nome, but the church there, they wanted to basically use Brother Ross to fix their building and preach and teach, but they did not want a pastor. Basically, they wanted a preacher, teacher, and a worker. They wanted to run everything, and they were never interested in him being the pastor. And anytime he would go out and about, some of the folks were super cruel to Mrs. Ross, and so it just wasn't working there. So praying for an opening, the Lord had kind of sparked this opening before, and it turns out this is a place that really needs a pastor, so this church can keep going, and they care about reaching. They got a bunch of awesome team contacts from this meeting. One of the volunteers that helps with youth group was basically the ride for a lot of the kids that came during the VBS. And so Brother Ross and he are going to go talk to each of them about their souls one-on-one. One thing I wish was a little different. There's just a few things I wish were a little different on how the VBS went, because some of the altar calls were more like give the gospel and raise your hand if you need it. And Brother Ross and I think, it'd be great to talk to people one-on-one. So he wants to go back and follow up. It did happen in Anna's class where the pastor got to go talk to them individually. Different scheduling things kept coming up for the other classes. Just different. You don't go to somebody else's church and say, you need to do it this way, right? Because he's the pastor. We're trying to be a help and an encouragement. And they were getting the gospel and they were getting reached with it over and over. We just would love to have an altar call at the end of the service, and that's not what they did. But Brother Ross, that's what he wants to do when he gets to carry this forward. And he's still, the Lord's touch is to go and reach all these outer areas. Is there any other testimonies my family wanted to offer before I ask for questions? Did I cover everything? Oh, Mark.
I guess first overarching testimony, probably like the biggest thing that affected me for my life going there was just really being on the mission field with another missionary and just watching their heart for souls, really, just their willingness to give the gospel wherever they are all the time. And just like to really be able to see firsthand the boldness and not being nervous if someone's not going to like you because you give them the gospel. So just being able to toughen up and give them the gospel anyways, even if they're going to give you weird looks or they're going to get frustrated at you. You can't give the gospel to the wrong person, no matter who you give it to. If they're saved, they're going to like it. If they're not, well, they need to hear it even more. So just the willingness that Brother Ross has to give the gospel wherever he is really convicted me and affected me for sure.
Amen. Amen. Yes.
I thought it was neat. Something Lord laid on my heart was when we'd be out around the town, I was trying to find the locals because they're the ones who are going to be there when all the tourism is over. And so I'd give a tract to one of the workers working behind one of the counters, and they were kind of shocked, like someone actually cared about them. I think they're used to just being used with tons of tourists going through. But stop and talk to them for a minute and say, hey, we have a church just outside of town. We'd love for you to come. We love people, and we would love to see you there. And one of them just about made me cry. She took the tract, and then she just stopped and just read it right there. There was no one behind me, so she had a few minutes. And it was just neat to see people want to be cared about. Someone just to spend the time to love them and that you're invited to. And then something on my heart personally was to try to minister to Tara. I think encouraging pastors' wives is really important. They are like the support for their husband while they're on the field. And men are pretty tough, but ladies are just a little more tender. And so I was really, my heart's desire was to minister to her and to be a friend and encourage her. And so we had lots and lots of talks. She's good at sharing her heart and talking. So I feel like that was a blessing, something that I had been praying for, and I got to see. And then I was also personally really happy as a mom to see my kids being able to serve the Lord and develop a little boldness. Anna went up to a stranger at that festival and handed a little girl a balloon and a track, and I was like, praise the Lord, that's awesome. So I was excited as a mom just to see we're raising the next generation to care about people and go after them.
The church there, both the Rosses and the Judsons were a huge blessing. They kept wanting to be there and say, hey, we're here to try to be a blessing. And then they're always thinking they want to be a blessing back. And I think that's how Christianity is supposed to work a little bit, right? You try to just see who you can minister to. And even our family said at different times, it's kind of a lot better than vacation in some ways, because you're actually having purpose while you're getting to be a part of the Lord's work and minister, instead of just what things do I want to do? No, let's try to find what the Lord wants us to do, and let's be seeking after that. And that was neat to watch with the kids. And I'd heard a number of missionaries say, more important than me going in a lot of ways is bringing my wife, because what's going to keep the missionary on the field is an encouraged wife. And many, many, many missionaries come back because their wife doesn't stay encouraged. And you could see how important that was. Yeah. And you can totally see that. So any questions about the field or about the move or what's involved with the ministry, or maybe, yes? January. I thought it was a year from January, but it's this January.
Oh, this January.
It'll be this January that he'll be the pastor. And Brother Judson will stay as part-time staff for about a year, and then they don't know what's going to happen after that. But Lord willing, the Rosses can come to family camp next year, and Brother Judson would still be there. So that'll be a blessing for them. But yeah, next January, Brother Justin will be, they already call him Pastor Justin or Pastor Ross. That's what everybody calls him there. And he's got, Brother Judson's excited that Brother Ross has some things that he's already looking forward to doing there. Brother Judson kept saying, I'm so glad you're here, Phil. I'm so glad you're here, because we really want Justin and Tara to succeed. That's his main desire, is that they would succeed. And so even though we teased him about being a Marine, because Brother Judson's Army or whatever, so they have that joke going, you can tell he's super excited to have Brother Ross there. Any other questions? That you said you had two.
I was just wondering how large the church is, how many people are in the church.
Actually, no.
Was that
He didn't really tell us.
40s maybe?
No.
Yeah, I think 40s. They did lose their super wealthy member recently, but it was because of, attitude reasons. But so like this one guy was half the offering. You want everybody to know about it. So that's changed. So Mrs. Judson had worked back and forth to kind of supplement the ministry. And that's made it difficult for them, because she's already totally retired. And then that dropped things off. So, but 40-ish members. He did tell us that it was record VBS for at least 5 years. And so that was really exciting. Even though it didn't all the ways that Brother Justin had planned, like just to bombard the town and go to all these events and do more canvassing. Their first night was like one of their worst first nights, but their high day blew every record that they had for years. So that was just neat to see the Lord do things opposite of how it had been planned. Any other questions? Yes, Sandra?
Dad.
That's what it looked like. Yeah. It was the most fun one too, for sure. But they said it would taste terrible, so I didn't feed you guys that one. Yeah, Isaiah?
I caught a fish between 200 and 300 pounds. 10 is a little closer to 2 pounds, though.
Between 2 and 3. He said he caught one between 200 and 300 pounds, but it was a little closer to 10.
2 is closer. 10 is closer to 2.
Yeah. Very good. Yes, Brother Wes.
All right, you gotta practice.
Yeah. Yeah, believe it or not, a lot of people, it comes right off of 3-tab roofing, which I thought would be gross, and moss and everything. And that's what many of them drink. Some will do.
Filter it.
A lot of them, it's filtered. A lot of them, it's
Water
filtered.
is not
Ross
too.
is filtered.
What?
The Ross's is filtered, but a lot of people who live there don't filter the water straight off the roof.
And for all your sanitation, you just use it right off the roof. But then they do try to have a drinking
No,
thing. So.
no. The Rosses had the guy who lived there just drank it off. The
Yeah,
roof.
no, a lot of people do just drink it.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. So we ran out of water. I'm like, what in the world? They're like, oh yeah, that's a big deal. Go ahead. They pretty much all speak English. I was talking to Brother Justin about that. The language barriers, if you want to go out and evangelize people coming off the ships, a lot of them don't speak English. So down the road, Brother Ross would like to get some tracks in different languages because a lot of Japanese, Chinese, and a few Europeans, you see boats all day, all the time, going down there between these islands, these giant cruise ships, and then they pull off and they'll just take things that you hand them. And so down the road, that's something that he'd be interested in doing. But no, for the islands, they try to keep the language going, but most people don't care because the trade language is English. And but that's a great question. Not necessarily. It's you guys understand a tourist, that the Allbachs understand a tourist town. Lots of the work happens when the tourists are coming. And then people just live off of what they made and shut down work for the winter season. And so there's different ways the ministry would go. Now that's not his remote, the remote mission. A lot of those people live off the land and the government because all the natives get taken care of. They get an amount, they get their medical, everything's taken care of by tax dollars. And so those people just get their check and that's taken care of. They don't do anything unless they want to. But they need the gospel still. And like many of these places don't have that. There are some isolated guys, but they're trying not to be found, and he doesn't know how well that he could find them. But, yeah. I don't know if that answered your question. Yes, Brother Matt?
It just so happened that when I'm on one of those cruises, I was blessed to be able to go and talk to a lot of the workers in those towns. And a lot of those workers actually leave the town also.
Some do, yeah.
Home down to the southern. So it's going to be interesting for them to catch all the ones that town was shut down. I mean, we were coming close to the end of the season, and lots of things were shut down. And it's just
I asked
have to travel way far to get them right. I mean,
I asked about that. Most of the church is made up of year-round people. There's a couple people that come and go, but
distant.
Well, there's neighborhoods. There's like normal neighborhoods. It's very hilly, lots of hills. But it's like Seattle if you've been in that type of driving. But there's a ton of neighborhoods.
It's very inclined from house to house. Everything faces the sea. There's the one highway and then all the little roads, and it's all feels like you're going to get dumped into the sea at any time. But any other questions? Yes, Brother Andy. So I don't know that number, but there are some that leave. It's not a ton that leave. The town goes from being people moving that when the ships are gone, there's just the 8,500 minus a few that live there. But once the ships aren't coming through. Other gospel preaching churches, it sounds like there's possibly a couple.
There were no other Baptist churches.
There's no other Baptist churches of any kind, but there's two that Brother Justin thinks possibly give the gospel. No one's trying to necessarily share it other than theirs. That he knows, they've only been there a couple months. Our plan was to go to Nome. That's where we thought we were going until all this started to change at the beginning of the year, and the Lord's guided, and this seems like just a really needed opportunity. Very thankful to see how the Lord has worked that out. Any other questions before we close in prayer? So be praying about our church, where we would go next. Got a few ideas. Zambia might be an interesting one. I'm not sure, but they speak English there, and it's very open to the gospel. So that'd be a potential one. We have missionaries in Mexico. That'd be a cheaper, easier flight, and we'd want to do that probably sometime in the spring. The Kings have a lot of opportunity to canvas. They got one going. They're trying to get another one going. And then Brazil might be an option. There's also, we've been invited for years and we haven't done it, to go over to see the Taylors in Belgium, and they're not there much longer. So I just really would like the Lord to make guidance clear. So a lot of it will be connecting with the missionary in the opening. Some would be super exciting for fruit, like here's a fruit opportunity. Others would be like, hey, these missionaries need encourage and we could go help and do things. All of it is important. We want missionaries where they're getting tons of people saved, but we also want missionaries to be a witness where the gospel, where they need faithful witness as well, even if it's not fast, even if it's not going, if we only went to where people got reached quickly, imagine how many towns wouldn't have any pastors and missionaries. And so I'd like to know the Lord's clarity on that. And any other questions before we close? Do be praying about how we might help them. We had some left on the mission trip fund. We tried not to spend it all, and the goal all along was what's left to try to give to the missionary and be a blessing. So it's possible that we could help them get their rain collector, which would be something they're really going to need in the winter months. So let's pray for the Rosses. Thank you for praying. We know a handful of souls, fruit to our account from this trip, and there might be a number more here coming up soon as they get to go visit these contacts. And so let's close with prayer. Our gracious Father,